p.m. on March 19th. Committee that we have present at the moment is Councilor Matt McGrath Smith, Councilor Dave Bartley, and online we have Councilor Linda Vacan. In council chambers we have also Councilor Carmen Ocasio. I'm also looking for the paper so that I could read in the whatever reading that we do when someone's online.
Do you need a motion?
Yes, a motion so that I can read it and then.
So moved.
I don't have it in front of me. Jeff, is it on top of the president's desk probably?
Thought I had one on the clerk's desk. Read anything?
Oh!
No worries.
Yeah.
I'm still agile.
Well, you didn't quite make it. As long as you get hurt, that's the main
I
thing.
didn't fall.
I don't want you to get hurt. That's the main thing.
No worries. I wouldn't get hurt off of that. Thank you. So I found it, Jeff. Thank you. It was on the clerk's desk. So a motion to take a roll call vote that for the purposes of this meeting would be applicable to all motions to remove an item from the table, place items on the table, package items, open or close a public hearing, or suspend the rules, unless there is an objection. Motion that, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. And then I'll entertain a motion to take up item 1.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Item 1 is the minutes of March 5th, 2025. I'll give a minute to anyone to review if they haven't. But if everyone has, feel free to make the motion to comply with receiving the minutes.
Yeah, my motion is to receive the minutes. Can I just make a comment?
Councilor Bartley.
And really, they don't give enough credit to Jeff and to Brenner for doing all this, but it's a pain in the toe. And really, if anybody really needs a challenge, it would be, or to really, it's on tape. But these are just helpful for the old school people like me, just to sort of see it on a written page. It just makes it easier. So I do appreciate it. Okay, that's it.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Item 1, minutes of March 5th, 2025 meeting have been received. I entertain a motion to take up item 2.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. And welcome, Councilor Jenny Rivera.
Counselor?
Item 2 was filed by Councilor Bartley. This is that the City Council establish an ordinance and minimum sewer fee to be paid to the city upon the sale of any real estate closing. Currently, none exist, though a $5 fee was the norm. The present actual rate is $7.50 to be correct, per 1,000 gallons. Refer to ordinance. We had a conversation on this. I thought it was last meeting, but this looks like it was March 5th, which was last meeting. So right now, I think what should be in front of us is either some language and also the numbers that you had requested before, Councilor Bartley. Is that correct?
Yeah, it looks good.
Okay.
There's just a little typo at A2. There's 2 periods there. So we just want to remove the 2 periods. That's just typographical nonsense.
And
it says,
that's Jeff, or
yeah,
Attorney
we don't
Messina.
need a motion, but Jeff will clean it up.
Okay.
And then the minimum sewer use fee of $7.50 per property. Does everybody understand what this is? Does everybody know what's going on here?
Maybe it'd be good if you kind of elaborated for the people online, just in case.
Okay, just through the chair to anybody who's wondering. So when we do residential real estate closings, always we want to get the numbers right for when the seller transfers it to the buyer, and you've got to make sure that the seller pays off, all the stuff, the property taxes and the water and then the sewer. Well, quite often the sewer reading, or the water reading leads to a sewer fee of, I've had in my experience where it's under $1. So you have to write a check for $50. It's a waste of time when it happens. And I was speaking with other lawyers, and I was speaking with the administrative staff, at more importantly at DPW, and I asked her, I said, what do you think? And she said, what would be fair is a $7.50 minimum fee, because that would just pay for the administrative effort we have to put in. So at a minimum, for any closing, it'd be $7.50. That'll be eaten by the seller. And then anything above that, of course, you got to pay all of it. And then no more of these, $1.25, 52-cent deals or whatever it is. So that's a de minimis fee. It covers the admin costs for residential real estate closings. I think Attorney Bissonnette was, on point last week because he was thinking about something that I wasn't, and I'm not there yet with the commercial stuff because I'm really not a commercial real estate person. But maybe when I have another conversation down the road with the DPW staff, Mr. Chair, that maybe I can say to them, okay, this is what it is for everybody, but should we segregate it out for residential, commercial, industrial?
Yeah, I was gonna, since you mentioned that,
You know,
Counselor Bartley, I was gonna ask, just for clarification, this is for residential, or this is for everything across the board, really? Okay.
And I didn't drill down
Yep.
with the staff, and I really have limited experience doing commercial stuff, but
So that would be for another day.
I think it's for another day.
Okay.
But I think that's
For now,
I
we're
think that's
here.
where Attorney Bissonnette was going. And because in his career, I think he did a lot of commercial stuff. Me, I mainly do residential, and I'm just happy with 750. I think we're good to go. And if we need to segregate it out, then we can talk to DPW down the road.
Perfect. Counselor Jordan is present online as well, and I think I saw his hand raised, but now it's down, and maybe it was a mistake. It just should be clear.
Yeah, I'm all set, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to be recognized to join as a panelist.
Oh, got you. I got you. I just didn't. I gotta wait, but I got you. Don't worry about it, Counselor Jordan.
So I'll make it, there's no one else, I'll just make a motion that we recommend adoption at full city council.
Second.
All in favor, or do we have discussion still?
Roll call, I think.
So then, yes. Okay. Roll call vote. Counselor Bacon,
Yes.
Counselor McGrath Smith,
Yes.
Counselor Bartley,
Yes.
Counselor Jenny Rivera,
Yes.
and then Counselor Israel Rivera, which is a yes. That's 5 yeas. This is approved to go to the full council.
All right, sir, I'll take, how do you want to do it? Do you want me to just take 3 off the table now?
That works for me.
Okay, motion to remove 3 from the table.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. So item 3 was filed by Counselor Jordan, ordered that the city of Holyoke develop a personnel policy for the handling of an administrative leave and codifying the rules into ordinance as recommended by the Personnel Department, including but not limited to when employees should or should not be placed on paid leave or unpaid leave. The current process appears lacking objective standards. Taxpayers should also be protected to ensure people who should not be out on paid administrative leave are placed on unpaid administrative leave. Councilor Jordan, I'll give you the floor since you're here and you can elaborate more. We've met on this several times. I think I put it back on the agenda so that we can try to get this done and just figure it out. So go ahead, Councilor Jordan.
Yeah, thank you. I think what I wanted to do is just to make sure that we had ordinances that are consistent with what the state law is sending, is telling us, and then that would be our guide. Essentially, I believe the rule is, let's see here, I'll just pull it up. It states that, basically, to the extent permitted by Massachusetts general law, any officer or employee who is under indictment for misconduct in such office or employment or for misconduct in any elected or appointed public office, trust, or employment at any time held by him or her may be suspended without compensation or benefits pursuant to the provisions and procedures pursuant to Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 268A, Section 25. No person suspended under this section or Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 268A, Section 25 shall be suspended with compensation or benefits. This section shall apply to all officers or employees of the city of Holyoke, including but not limited to all appointments to any boards or commissions, the school department, police department, fire department. This section shall apply to all positions covered by collective bargaining agreements unless the language is expressly in conflict with the terms of the collective bargaining agreement and the terms of the collective bargaining agreement are not preempted pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 150E, Section 7D. And that was the language that I got from the legal opinion previously. So I believe there was a draft also from the law department, which we may want to go through that. As
That would
well.
be the first
And I-
document, right? Or the second one?
What's that?
Because, yeah, yours has the KJ edits on the second document, and the first one is the one that was the law department put together. Is that what you're referring to?
Yes, sir.
Okay, go ahead. My bad.
So, let's see here. Right, so I think, the additional edits were in the first sentence that now would read, to the extent permitted by Mass General Law, any officer or employee who is indicted by a grand jury in any state in the United States of America for misconduct while in office or employee may be suspended by the officer or employee's appointing authority. And then the last sentence is, this provision shall not apply to elected officers or elected employees unless specifically applicable to said elected officer or elected employee pursuant to Massachusetts general laws. Let's see here. I guess those were the law department's two edits to mine. I guess I have to go along with those. Most of those I don't have a problem with. The only one I was a little concerned about, I don't know if the law department wants to speak to it or not, but it was limited to who's indicted by a grand jury in any state of the United States for misconduct. And I was, they added the words by a grand jury. Originally, it just said who is under indictment for misconduct in such office. I don't know if they wanted to speak to, they added by a grand jury.
Do we want to request, so Attorney Bissonnette, if you're there, is that who's with us tonight?
Yeah, if you want.
Yeah, if you can expand on that a little bit.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I think, well, we're very familiar in New England with the term grand jury. It is generally used across the country as a means to determine whether or not a felony has been committed, not used for misdemeanors or minor offenses. So if that's the intent, you may want to substitute the term grand jury and replace that with who is charged with a felony. Now, you can be charged with a felony and not necessarily be indicted. For example, in Massachusetts, you're allowed to have felonies treated if they're the same category as misdemeanors in the district court. Felonies, however, are serious felonies are generally assigned to the superior court system. So if you want it to be for felonies, that would be very, very clear, and it would be almost regardless of the mechanism in any state. Just bear in mind that some things can be felonies that are generally regarded as perhaps not as serious. For example, some states have made public urination felony. Regardless of your thoughts on that, it might be a bit severe if someone is charged with that to say, okay, you're suspended from your job. So with the indicia of a grand jury, at least you know you have something more than an officer's discretion as to whether to charge somebody with a felony. You actually have a process where an independent body, the grand jury, listens to the presentation from the prosecutors as to whether or not there is sufficient evidence to go forward with a felony charge. So that's why I think the term grand jury gives you a much tighter box than using the term felony, and I think that's how the review of this came down, and that's why the term was added. Hope that's more clarifying than confusing. Happy to answer any other questions on it.
Thank you,
Mr.
Councilor. Go ahead, Councilor Jordan.
Yeah, the statute, what I'm trying to do is just mirror the Massachusetts general law, and they do not qualify. The way they have it written is exactly the way I had written it in my proposed order. And so I was hoping that we could just use the 268A section 25 language, which I don't know, maybe Jeff could put the statute up on the board. That might be helpful, if he has that, or do you need me to share that?
I think my question, Councilor Jordan, while we're waiting,
I can look it up.
for me, where, like, who would be the enforcement entity behind this, right?
The
That's
person
the
who's
only concern for
appointing
me.
authority of the person.
Okay, because how do we say it? It does leave a situation where there are certain circumstances where there are felonies that could be you got into an accident or something, right? And I'm not saying, I don't want to make any excuses for anyone, but like you're potentially losing your job and your income for something that is not as egregious, but it is deemed a felony. And how is that being defined, or is it up to the department head or the mayor defining whether or not that's happening? Mm-hmm. But if we make it by ordinance, then there is no room for that, I think. Or is that right or no?
I don't think the statute requires it to be a felony. I think it only requires an indictment for misconduct in your office. And I think that's basically the standard.
I get what you're saying.
Says,
misconduct in your office. Okay, got you. 1 second, Councilor Jordan.
It's 268A section 25, by the way, Jeff, just so we're clear. 268A section 25.
If it's already Massachusetts state law and that's what you're trying to mirror, I'm totally with it. Like, I get that. I think for me, it's the only thing is just thinking about whatever the enforcement mechanism is on our end, right? If we make it ordinance, that means that there's something that the city would be enforcing, not just the state.
Well, right. I mean, the reason I'm even bringing this up, one would say, well, why do I even need to have an ordinance when it's a state law, right? I mean, that's an obvious question. Well, the reason is because I don't think we're following the statute. That's my concern. And so I'm trying to, this is more really about us just being aware of what these state law rules are and making sure that, here at the local level, we're doing things in a uniform way. Personnel did a survey and it's like, you got one department saying, well, if it's not that severe, we don't really do it. But if it is more severe, we do it. And it's like, well, we don't think, we think our contract, that doesn't require it. But then personnel came back and said, and the law department supported them too, says that doesn't matter. You still have to follow this. And the CBA does not override what the state law says on that. And the law department had a whole legal opinion, which was really well done, by the way. I'll stop. Thank you.
No worries. Thank you, Councilor Bartley.
So the question that wasn't answered is if it's not being followed under Chapter 268A, what would make anyone think we're going to follow it under the city ordinance? So that's one question. I don't, this is duplicative and repetitive. I don't think that makes sense myself, but I'll happily move it forward. I would also say, I'm okay with the language more or less. It says may, so it doesn't mean like you have to do it. I think probably a memorandum from the HR department would probably go just as far as, reminding employees and supervisors that 268A25 is the law and you gotta follow it. And if you don't understand it, call the law department. I don't think you should have to say, well, if you don't follow it, then you're 268A25, but now you gotta follow it because it's a city ordinance. I don't understand the logic on that, so, and I think we'd be hard pressed to explain the logic. And as I said, the last time this thing came up, and I'll finish here, indicting somebody is one thing. Under a grand jury, there is no lower bar in the criminal world. First of all, grand juries are private. You don't even know what's going on. And now we're saying in a private session, the lowest bar, the lowest form of, it's not, I mean, Mike does this stuff more than me, but there's no real defense that you can even put forward, hardly a defense you can put forward to prevent a grand jury from issuing an indictment. So there you go. So now you got the barest of all minimums, and that could lead to something else that's unfortunate in terms of somebody's employment when it's not even there. And so I said the last time that perhaps we should think about pooling the money, or there's not going ahead and leaving the funds that aren't remitted in the general funds, but putting them to the side, because that would be a pretty penny, because these things could go on forever. And if the person is ultimately exonerated, what do they do? It's like that famous line, like Ray Donovan, how do I get my reputation? But where do I go to get my reputation back? It's almost impossible.
Yeah.
And the way this world works right now with, the horrific things that are said and done, just under the cloak of darkness, or wherever you want to say them, I don't even care where they're being said. And there's no real recourse to have a regular debate. I think this is probably not something that I frankly want to support. I respect everybody's opinion. I certainly would vote to move it forward to city council. I'm going to vote just not to recommend it, frankly, but that's just me, and that's my reasoning. So the only other thing I would say is, if you want to do this, you might, down the road, I'm saying now because I don't want to do it now, you might want to say under 249 have a new section 2 or 2A, that the executive may have further administrative orders apply to this, such as pooling somebody's salary, keeping it to the side, however you want to say it, in case they're exonerated. I mean, I just think this is harsh. I think it's redundant. I don't see a need. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Vacan?
When you're ready.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So my perspective on this is that it is helpful to put into local ordinance state laws that have been applicable to certain situations, but there hasn't always been a local awareness of what the law is. In the past, we've adopted certain other state laws, which we do as a matter of practice. And while we don't certainly put every state law into local ordinance, I think when there has been a question about applicability, it doesn't hurt to have it also stated within the local ordinance. We're not making it any more strict than the state law. We're just articulating it in our local documentation and local laws. So my question through the chair to the maker of the order is, based on the discussion that I'm hearing, it sounds like the maker would prefer to have the language that he originally submitted, at least as far as the initial part of the legal form is written. And I'm interested to know if the maker wants the last sentence that Attorney Nantalewski included in the law department's draft, and then I'd like to make a motion once I hear that answer.
May I answer, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, give me 1 Second. So, yes, go ahead, Councilor Jordan.
Okay, so the first, I do support one of the amendments that they proposed, which was, so they made 3 amendments, just so we're clear, so we're following the discussion. In the first sentence, the statute says under indictment for misconduct. They added the words by a grand jury, but the statute doesn't say by a grand jury. It could be not by a grand jury, but maybe that's the only way. But I would like to keep it the same as the language in the statute. The second amendment they put was, at any time held by him or her may be suspended by the officer or the employee's appointing authority. That is no problem. I don't have a problem with that amendment. That's just clarifying. That makes sense. The last sentence I'm not supportive of because they exclude elected officials. And the statute makes clear this applies to elected officials, the state law. So it's not just for appointed officials. It's also, it says in the statute, it's very clear, elective or appointed office. So I don't think we should exclude elected officials unless, but I mean, if Attorney Bissonnette wants to speak to that more as to why they put that exclusion in there, I don't know. The other thing I wanted to point out on this amendment, this ordinance change is there's multiple issues going on. Not only are we not following the statute, okay? Number 2 is, remember now, this statute says anybody under indictment, the appointing authority has the discretion to have a suspension or not, okay? That is the appointing authority's total discretion. They don't have to. So you have all these things, well, is this a serious offense, not a serious offense? Whatever the case may be, the appointing authority would have that decision. That's the way the state law is written. However, once a decision is that someone is to be under administrative leave, the law requires it that it be unpaid leave. And we're not doing that in Holyoke. We have people out on these administrative leaves and they're being paid. You're not allowed to do that, I maintain, not if you're under indictment. So I want to make sure that we're actually doing what the statute says. And I'm really concerned that it's like, well, this person's under unpaid leave, this one's underpaid. And the other point I'd like to make is, if you're going to be in these situations, it's better to have unpaid and to escrow the money than to just pay all the money. And then if the person is ultimately convicted, they don't have a right to the money. They forfeit their right to the money. So where do we go to get the money back that this person's already been paid? So that's the other problem. At least in the other scenario, if it's unpaid and we escrow the money, you can write them a check if they're found and they're totally exonerated, no problem. Here's your check, happy to give it to you. Okay, but the other way, the money is guaranteed loss. There's no protection to taxpayers in that situation. So the 2 takeaways from tonight is we should follow the state law, and number 2, we should protect taxpayers. That's what this statute seeks to achieve here.
Thank you. Counselor McGrath-Smith.
Thank you. I'm wondering if we have a list, because the state statute specifically discusses it not being in conflict with collective bargaining agreements. So do we have a list of what the bargaining agreements already say about paid leave? Like, what would it be toothless? Is it that all of these groups that are named in here actually have in their collective bargaining agreement that it's all going to be paid? Because I think it's, I hear both sides. I hear wanting to protect the taxpayer, but I also hear, not wanting to presume guilt over innocence. And if you immediately suspend somebody in a leave situation without pay, you are, in a way, by continuing to not pay them, it seems like you're sort of lending more to the side of assuming guilt instead of innocence. And And I wonder just what the impact would actually be. Because it names specific, it says included but not limited to, but then it really names boards, commissions, school department, Holyoke Police, Holyoke Fire Department. This section shall apply to all positions covered by collective bargaining agreements unless the language is explicitly in conflict with the terms of the collective bargaining agreement. So I would love a list in order before we pass. If we move this forward, what would the impact actually be? Thank you.
Yeah, Councilor McGrath-Smith, that's a great question. That's one of the questions I kind of wanted to ask too as well. For me, with regards to if the unions or whomever it is that's protecting them already have that in the languages, and then there's only a couple employees or several employees that we have that are not unionized, are they not protected? Are they the only ones that would be subjected to this potential policy? But I'm kind of erring on the side with Councilor Bartley, where I'm down to do the work and push it through, but I'd be cool with it as a no recommendation for now, and then at the full council, people can make whatever decision they would want to do. But I see Councilor Vacan's hand up again, and Councilor Jourdain, is that still up, or is that a second hand up after the fact?
Eventually, I'd like to just address some of these. I'd like to address some of these good points that you're making, so whenever it's my turn.
After Councilor Vacan, I'll go back to you.
Okay. Sounds good.
Thank you. So what I would like to do is I would like to offer a motion that we amend the legal form to use number 3 KJ edits and add in the statement from the new legal form from tonight that references by the officer or employee's appointing authority to the KJ version. And I'm fine sending it to city council without a recommendation if that is the preference of the committee. But I think the discussion about whether it applies or not is sort of a moot point because it's a state law anyway, and that would all have to get worked out should circumstance arise with a particular individual.
Which part about application is a moot point? I don't contextually understand right now. Which part with that, please? Can you help me understand that?
So the discussion was around if a bargaining contract already said you couldn't suspend the person, then what would be the point of having the ordinance? Right. And all I'm saying is the state law is still the state law. And if an issue arose with an individual, everyone would have to be looked at and evaluated and determined on its own merits. So it doesn't, the fact that we put it in local ordinance doesn't change what the process would be because it's already state law. That's all.
All right, thank you. Councilor Jourdain?
Thank you.
Yes,
So
in terms of the,
can I get a second on that proposed amendment?
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, Councilor Jourdain?
yes, as far as the conflict between a collective bargaining agreement goes and the state law, I would refer you to the legal department's legal opinion of October 23rd, 2023, where I think Attorney Mantelewski does an excellent job of laying out when a CBA would prevail over the state law. And it's in the situation where Mass General Law 150E Section 7D, which is referenced in the language here, preempts. But you'll find out, I don't believe you're going to see any of our collective bargaining agreements enumerated under that statute, so that there would be preemption. So, but nevertheless, the law department has laid out the legal standard and it's built into this ordinance. So this scenario of, well, does this one or does that one or does this one? There's a legal standard that's established, and if you follow the guidance in their October 23rd legal opinion, there won't be any issue about what guides. Is it the state law and this ordinance or the collective bargaining agreement? So that question in this ordinance has been answered. I just want you to know that point has been addressed. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So, Counselor, I'm waiting for a motion on,
I'll
make a
I'll
motion
move.
that we refer the amended version of the legal form provided, marked 3KJ, be referred to city council at our next meeting from Ordinance Committee as amended,
Without a recommendation,
that's an
without
amendment.
a recommendation.
and I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Roll call.
Roll call vote, yes. Counselor Vacan,
Yes.
Counselor McGrath-Smith,
Yes.
Counselor Bartley, Counselor Jenny Rivera,
Yes.
and then Counselor Israel Rivera. Yes. That's 5-0, sent to the full committee with no recommendation.
And I'll take 4 off the table?
Yes.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Item 4 was filed by former Councilor Puello. Order that the no parking sign at 14 Arthur Street be please removed, but per DPW must go to ordinance. I was hoping that Councilor Ocasio, because I saw her here but she had to go, could kind of address some of this, or at least represent it just because it's in her ward. But I got a report back from the city engineer, and her comments are that no existing parking zone was previously established by ordinance from a point of 723 feet northerly of Peltai to a point of 27 feet further northerly. DPW staff has indicated that the no parking zone was established for safety reasons because property owners in the area were having a difficult time entering and exiting their driveways when cars were previously allowed to park along the roadway. The committee is asked to confirm if this order they are looking to reverse. Given that the road is only 18 feet in width, it would be beneficial to make sure adjacent property owners are in support of the no parking removal before revising the order. So Carmen is not here currently, but if you have, Councilor Vacan?
Well, I'm making this statement by memory, and maybe Jeffrey can confirm through our past minutes. But I thought I remembered that the people that were affected by that had moved, and that's why it was looking to be removed, because they were in a unique situation with a van issue. And that's why it had been put in place initially. But that's only my memory. I can't refer you to minutes that actually say that.
Thank you. Councilor Bartley?
Yeah, I'm, based upon the representative, I'm gonna make a motion that we deny this, not to be mean, but just because there's too many questions. I'm familiar with that street, but not that familiar
Right.
with 18 feet. So, and it's a very narrow street, and to me, this is ripe for Carmen or whoever, or that large council, or any
Right,
councilor to
right.
go check it out, and maybe do a little poll of the
And then
street.
have the conversations with the residents.
Yeah, that way we can move it along and then redo it if necessary. And maybe somebody could just take it upon themselves to go visit the property owners. So
Perfect.
my motion would be to deny.
Do I hear a second? Second. All in favor?
Yes.
Roll call vote. Councilor Vacan?
No.
Councilor Bartley?
Yes.
Councilor Jenny Rivera?
Yes.
Councilor McGrath-Smith?
No.
And then Councilor Israel Rivera, yes. I will reach out, that's 3-2. The order has been denied. And I'll reach out to Councilor Ocasio and see if she can reach out to them or whomever it was at 14 Arthur that had this situation, and see if she could refile and have the conversation to see if there is, because it is true it makes sense to having to reach out to the residents that are, if it is a new people that are living there, would they want this to be removed? Because it would be impacting them more. But yes, I'll reach out to Councilor Ocasio. On to entertain a motion to take up item 5.
So moved?
All in favor?
Second? Aye.
Item 5 was filed by Councilor Jenny Rivera. Order requested the implementation of a 3-way stop sign at the intersection of Mosier and Bauer Streets. This was in October. It was tabled. I just brought it back up to see if we got an update, see where we were with this. here the response from the engineer was, while this location does not initially appear to warrant a three-way stop sign at the location, and the engineering will further investigate this location to see what alternatives to improve safety may exist. It should be noted that the crash data obtained from Mass DOT for the March 2021 to 2025 only indicates one crash with no injuries at this location during the night. I remember this conversation. I think for us, or what the conclusion came was, yes, that was the recommendation of the engineer, but it was a request of some of the residents and the Ward 1 councilor to see if this could be done. And so I had brought it back on the agenda just to get a heads up, and it sounds like they're standing strong with regards to it not making sense to have the three-way stop sign, and that they're looking to find other ways. So I think I would be okay with tabling this, but it's up to you, Councilor Jenny Rivera, to see what it is that you would like to do with this order. Maybe table it and have a conversation with the city engineer's office to see what strategies or safety measures they want to suggest. So that way, I can bring them. Actually, I feel like I should send this to public safety, and you can bring them in and have that conversation with them at public safety.
Okay, sounds good.
Is that something that can be done, Councilor Burt? Just to be.
Well, I just have
Go ahead.
a question. Can I just offer a suggestion?
Sure.
Humbly, I think we should move this out of council. I think we should accept the recommendation just to get it done.
Okay.
And then I think we should start fresh. And the reason I say that is because you know what's going to happen. We all know what's going to happen. It's going to sit here and simmer for forever. My other thought is, why has no one ever considered making that a one-way going up the hill? Why has no one ever considered doing something else? I mean, Linda had this great thing out there in Goodyear Park, blocking up the streets. I never thought for 1,000 years that, I mean, I voted for it, but I didn't really think it was going to pass, but it sure did. And it's become a real benefit, blocking off the street. I'm just saying, I mean, I don't know how, I've been on the street, 400 times, but I don't live there. So have you thought about alternatives other than this? We all know what the point is, public traffic safety. Everybody knows that. And sometimes the crash data doesn't reflect the reality on the ground.
Right.
So, to me, it would be a kind of a, I won't make the motion, I'll do whatever you want, but to me, it would make sense just to move it on, it keeps it in the public eye, that we're trying our best, and then also that there's more to come. But that's how I would do it, but you tell me, I'll vote whatever you want me to.
What do you want to do? That makes sense.
Yep, I think it makes sense.
So then you want to entertain a motion to accept the recommendation and then connect with the city engineer on the side to see what recommendations
Okay.
they would make, and then move forward with that.
Okay, so motion to accept the recommendation?
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Roll call vote. Councilor Bacon,
Yes,
Councilor Jenny Rivera,
Yes.
Councilor Meg McGrath Smith,
Yes.
Councilor Israel Rivera, yes, and then Councilor Bartley.
Yep.
I almost waited for somebody else to say yes for me.
I'll make a motion to,
How's it
if
going?
we need to package any of these, please say so, but I'll just make a motion to take,
I think all the city engineer ones could be packaged,
well,
actually.
I just want to do it the way you
We
want.
might have different votes.
Well,
on
I'll
that.
do it, I'll just make a motion to take 6 off the table, however you want to do it.
second.
So all in favor, item 6 was filed by Councilor Joe McGivern and Jenny Rivera. Order that DPW install a crosswalk for the city parking lot on North Canal Street across from GTI. This is a long one. So the engineer's comments is, in order for crosswalks to consider full compliant with ADA standards, sidewalk ramps with detectable warning strips should be located on both ends of the crosswalk. While no sidewalk exists on the parking lot side of the street, a ramp with a small sidewalk connection to the parking areas appears feasible. A ramp will also need to be installed on the GTI side of the street, which may require a small amount of sidewalk replacement on either side of the new ramp. New sidewalk construction will require a public hearing in accordance with section 78-162-162, and funding needs to be identified for work, cannabis funds. That's just my opinion. If committee wishes to wishes to progress this project forward. The public hearing should be scheduled on engineering. And engineering would request the committee help identify a funding source, like I just mentioned, for the future construction. Then there's the 78-162. Councilor Jenny Rivera, I know Joe's not here anymore. Do you have anything to add, just in case?
Well, correction, this was actually filed by,
Joe, Jose.
Cocaine Givner, yeah.
Oh, cocaine.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
all
there
right.
was an error in there. But yeah, her Counselor Givner and myself kept getting lots of complaints and concerns from the employees from the cannabis place across the street, and now we also now have a storage facility there. So that the concern is there's a lot of traffic there, a lot of trucks that go in that area, so they would, want to feel safe and have a crosswalk. So that's why we did the order.
Thank you, Councilor Vigan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I'd like to offer as a motion that if we can ascertain that we can use the marijuana fees to pay for this.
Yes.
If we can confirm that, then I would move that we would set up the public hearing to establish this crosswalk. Because to me, it seems directly related to the business and what those fees were meant to pay for.
Yes.
But we have not gotten a clear answer yet on that question. Thank you.
Thank you. And just for me, from the chair's perspective, I agree with you on that piece. That would make sense, maybe to forward some of this to the law department and figure out if we could use. Attorney Bissonnette.
Okay, I'll amend my motion that we send a request over to the law department if the marijuana mitigation fees could be utilized to accomplish this order.
I'll second that.
Second?
Well, all in favor?
All right.
And then roll call vote. That makes it easy. Councilor Reagan? Oh, wait.
Yes.
Partner, you have a question?
Well,
Nope.
I do.
Oh,
Okay, wait. Before we do the roll call vote, go ahead.
I'm first off, in our motions, we can't appropriate funds.
Right, we can't.
You can't do that. So but the second
But the
motion,
request. Right.
makes perfect sense. And I agree 100,000%. I think that's a very great idea. And then, but what this is saying is, the Board of Public Works has to, if we want the sidewalk, the Board of Public Works, before establishing, grading, or constructing a sidewalk, well, I mean, is there a need for a sidewalk there where you want to put the crosswalk through the chair to Jenny? Or to the chair? No, I don't know it that well, so I can't say.
There's a brand new sidewalk actually there where GTI is, but across the street there's not really a sidewalk where they're at. So what she's saying, what the city engineer is saying, that they can make something that is somewhat of a sidewalk, but the other part has to be regraded and redone. That's what I'm reading, but that is kind of a new sidewalk, like a couple of years old. But if she's saying that it has to be redone in a public hearing, I guess that's part of the process. But Attorney Bissonnette has his hand raised. Maybe he can answer.
And I do want to hear from Mike, but I have one
Go
more
ahead.
topic. Is that how do we get the Board of Public, because that seems like we have to do. We have to get the Board of Public Works to get cooking on this. How do we do that?
I think if we can identify, I mean, I think that they might be ready to get cooking on this. They just don't know how to pay for it.
Oh,
That's what it sounds like.
well, okay, then I guess we need to hear from Mike as to what do we do with this now? How do we
Right.
move this along?
Right.
Mike will tell us.
Attorney Bissonnette?
My suggestion might be that the council would refer to DPW for implementation with a recommendation to the mayor that funds be appropriated for installation from the cannabis impact fees.
There you go.
There you go. That's
So I'll second that motion. Well, he can't make a motion.
Yeah, I was gonna say who.
I'll make a motion to that effect.
And that motion was that we send it to DPW for implementation, and send a letter to the mayor to appropriate funds, utilizing the cannabis impact fees if possible.
Yeah, that's,
The second is.
If I may, Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead, Councilor, Attorney Bissonnette.
just for clarity, there's a sidewalk, a great sidewalk on one side where the buildings are. On the other side is a parking lot without curbing.
With no curbing.
Under the rules, the federal rules for handicapped accessibility that the city's obligated to implement for any project of this nature, we're gonna have to figure out literally to construct a handicap pad at the end of that crosswalk, which will then just go right into the gravel parking lot. My fear was that we were gonna get stuck having to do a sidewalk all the way down that side on private property. So we'll try to work that out, but really it's most important, given the level of activity now with a couple shifts down there and people coming and going for storage, they really need to get a crosswalk or some type of coverage there to slow the traffic.
So which part would be the private property where the parking lot ends and it goes into where Hazen Paper was or whatever that is, that older building?
Yeah, well, it meets the
other lot.
literally where it's the road, but we've got some right of way there. So if we get into the right of way, then we'd have to consider putting a sidewalk on. And there's really not enough pedestrian activity to really warrant two sidewalks, one on either side. But we can see that because as we further define and narrow what might be our exposure with the Cannabis Impact Fund, there's only a couple of operating entities left. So we have a fairly decent idea of what's left here that can be expended and what probably needs to be kept in reserve in anticipation of any potential litigation that may be coming. We'll keep a very close eye on that. And I think the council has been provided with a copy of a recent Boston Globe article concerning how other communities are getting sued. The nature of their settlement percentages often run in the 70 to 80% of what was paid in. And as you're aware, we've got one offer on the table that's for around 30% of what was paid in. So we're doing well with the one that's on the table and the one that's already been settled. So we're in good shape, I think, to fund this appropriately out of the Cannabis Impact Fund, and the company right there has requested it. So I think we're on the side of the angels with this one.
Yep. Thank you. So then the motion, now I hear a second. Did somebody second the motion? Because that was from Council.
Second.
Okay, and then all in favor?
Aye.
Roll call vote. Councilor Bacon?
Yes,
Councilor Bartley?
yes.
Councilor Meg McGrath-Smith?
Yes.
Councilor Jenny Rivera?
Yes.
And then Councilor Israel Rivera, yes. That's 5-0 yes vote. That was 6. Let me see, 7, 8, 9.
Motion to take up item 7.
Can we do 7 and 8 together?
So moved?
Okay, and then do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Item 7 is followed by then Councilor Tallman. Order that the DPW engineer consider putting stop signs at Joanne Bemis, Drake Bemis, Mountown Bemis, and West Meadowview Bemis. And then item 8 was filed by Councilor Givner. Order per constituent request that a right turn lane be designated on Hamden at the corner of Pleasant Street in an effort to enhance traffic flow. So 7, the engineer's comments are: none of these 4 intersections meet the requirements of the MUTCD warranting stop signs. Crash data obtained from Mass DOT for 2021 preset does not indicate any vehicular crashes at any of these stop locations in the last approximate 4+ years. Furthermore, MUTCD specifically states that the stop sign should not be used for speed control, as they are intended to assign right-of-way at intersections in order to reduce the potential for collisions and may increase crash rates if installed improperly. Recommended that this order be closed and no stop signs are warranted. I'm going to defer this to Meg because this is Ward 7 and she's the Ward 7 rep, and Peter Tallman is no longer on the council. So, Meg.
When we brought this up initially, remember with the meeting we took up all the road and traffic ones. I hadn't gotten a chance to talk to Tallman yet, and so we tabled it at that point. And since then, I've talked to Tallman, and I've also talked to the engineer, and I think it makes sense to move forward to the recommendation of the engineer.
Okay, awesome.
Is that your motion?
Yep.
I'll second that motion.
Thank you.
Number 7.
So for number 7, all in favor, roll call vote. Councillor Reagan, and this is to
Yes.
move it forward with the recommendation of the city engineer. And Reagan is a yes. Councillor Bartley.
Soft.
Councillor Bartley.
Yes.
Councillor McGrath Smith.
Yes.
Councillor Jenny Rivera.
Yes.
And then Councillor Israel Rivera, yes. 5-0. And then item 8. This one is was by Cocaine Givner, again, per constituent request that a right turning lane be designated on Hamden at the corner of Pleasant Street in an effort to enhance traffic flow. Engineer's comments, as previously discussed, October 2024, traffic data collection and a formal engineering warrant analysis must be done to determine if turning lanes are warranted at this location. This location did have a turning right turn lane approximately 10 to 15 years ago, which had to be removed because it caused queuing down Hamden Street. Committee is asked to close this order to seek funding to complete a new evaluation based on current traffic conditions.
The motion should be to accept the engineer's recommendation.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Under discussion,
I just want
Councillor
to ask a
McGrath
question
Smith.
around that motion, if I may, because it says the committee is asked to close this order or to seek funding to complete a new evaluation based on the current traffic conditions. And I was trying to get a sense of, like, what does that look like? This apparent kind of traffic study can be up to $50,000. It's not
I guess-
a small
I think that-
evaluation cost. So just because there's an or there,
Yeah.
So I'll amend my
go ahead.
motion to say we should close this order, but if I get a second, I'll say why.
Second.
So if, this is a good order, but it's tight over there. And that's the problem. And the only alternative I see is wiping out a sidewalk to make that wider. And I don't know if that's the best way to do it. Or to take somebody's property. And I don't think that's a really good way to do it either. But if public safety calls for
first,
it, then
right.
maybe it has, but I think this does what we just said with Jenny's order, right? It just puts them on notice again that this is serious, and the Ward 4 counselor and the Ward 7 counselor want to have these things addressed. So I would say, but when you put it before city council, it keeps it before the public eye, more so than this committee. So it just, and then the counselors for the wards can sort of talk offline, like you said, with the engineer and maybe get a better plan. So that's why I said what I said, to close the order for now, but it doesn't mean
That
it's
makes
dead.
sense.
It doesn't mean it's dead.
Yeah, no, I think for me, if we were to close it, Councilor McGrath Smith, I think that when I hear the or to seek funding, that sounds like to me is having a conversation with Councilor Givner to file an order to ask the mayor to look or appropriate some form of funding. Well, how that looks, it's obviously a side conversation or a longer conversation as to how we're going to do a traffic study. Do we do one portion? Do we do a larger portion? That's more to that, but I think it would have to follow another order from Councilor Givner asking to appropriate or find that, or from whomever. But on the motion, go ahead, Councilor.
I was going to say, honestly, if there was a traffic study to be done, the entire corridor there, just the size of East Hampton and Southampton have doubled since that whole corridor, 141, all of that was really established as like sort of a commuter road, through the Rotary all the way up. And you have a lot more traffic. We're going down Hamden up to 91 or going across the mountain on 141 now. So I think there's a lot of folks who live there, who've lived there for a long time. Good families, right, who've really seen a lot of traffic increase and have concerns. And so it's not just, that one right turn lane. It's sort of a wider question, I think, for some of the folks who live on that corridor now.
Awesome. So on the motion is that the committee accept the recommendations of the city engineer.
That's closed.
And that is closed, and that's pretty much it for now, right? So there was motion, it was made and seconded, on the vote, roll call vote, Counselor Vacan,
Yes.
Counselor McGrath Smith,
Yes.
Counselor Jenny Rivera,
Yes.
Counselor David Bartley,
Yes.
and then Counselor Israel Rivera is a yes.
And I'll make a motion to take up number 9.
All in favor?
All right,
Aye.
Number 9 was filed by Counselor Vacan, Jordan, and Puello. Order that a legal opinion be issued to clarify allowed uses of marijuana impact money. For example, if order from a facility is a problem in the community, can the money be used for mitigation? And I do not have Counselor Bissonnette, Attorney Bissonnette. Well, Linda, your hand is raised, so feel free, since you're the maker of the order, to take the floor first.
Thank you. So my motion was going to be to close this out because it was filed in 2022. And since then, there have been many changes and we're in the middle of working through all of that with the revised rules out of the Cannabis Commission. So this is really stale at this point. And so I would call and give it leave to withdraw.
Do I hear a second? All in favor?
all right,
Roll call vote. Counselor Vacan,
Yes?
Counselor Bartley,
yes.
Counselor McGrath Smith,
Yes.
Counselor Jenny Rivera,
Yes.
and Counselor Israel Rivera, yes. With that, the motion, the order has been left to withdraw for now. And then I'll entertain a motion to take up item 10.
Want to take 10?
Yes.
Motion to take 10 off the table?
All in favor?
I
Letter.
Sorry.
Before I read 10, I see Counselor Jordan's hand raised.
If you want to read it first, that's okay, but I can give the background since this was an ordinance that I had advocated for. So whenever you're ready for me.
Oh, okay. That's what it is. All right. You were ahead of the game. All right, then. So, from Mayor Joshua A. Garcia, letter of veto regarding order on reporting damages. The Committee on Ordinance. Jeff got to stop putting chocolate out here. I apologize. I keep eating all the chocolate. Ordinance to whom was referred in order that an ordinance be created that requires the department head to report with an incident report explaining the cause of any loss in their department over $250 in value to the City Council and Mayor within 30 days. Recommended that the order be adopted as amended for losses over $500. Councilor Jordan.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I believe, just so the procedural history on this was, I think everyone was in agreement to do it, that if there was a loss of city property or something was stolen or otherwise, and the number ultimately got raised from 250 to 500, that we wanted to do it, and I think the council had passed it actually unanimously. The mayor vetoed it, and I guess I'm going to call it a friendly veto because it's not that he was against it, but he said, wait till the financial policies pass. And my understanding is that this wording was incorporated recently when we did the financial policies. So I think this is all set, but if I'll defer either to Jeffrey or to Attorney Bissonnette if they want to correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe, because I did ask that question when maybe a few months ago we passed the rather extensive financial policies, I was assured, and I believe also the mayor assured me that this wording on the $500 rule was included in there, and I think we passed all those unanimously. So happy to hear from anybody else.
Thank you. I'll recognize Attorney Bissonnette, but first I see Counselor Vacan's hand raised.
I'll wait until Attorney
perfect.
Bissonnette.
Go ahead,
finishes.
Attorney
Thank
Bissonnette.
you.
I believe it was included when we did the editing of the financial policies manual, because when it came over from DOR, it wasn't included. I don't know if anybody recalls that. And it sat around for a year, but when it came up to final, the mayor wanted that included, so it should be in there, and I have a note to check on because it's not up on our website. So I want to make sure that it's been processed.
Awesome. So,
Should be appendix 3.
just Councillor Jordan, would we like to say that this is complied with, or maybe table until?
Yeah, I think so. I don't think there's a need to override the mayor's veto, and we can either just leave his veto to stand, or we can sustain it, and the committee can just maybe, just to get it out of your jacket, I would vote it back to the council to close out. But I would appreciate if Mike and Jeff could check to, number one, Mike's right about getting that ordinance that we adopted up on Unicode would be nice. But on top of that, if they could just verify that about the $500 rule was included, I'm almost 100% certain it was, because that was what was told to me, and I know the mayor was supportive. So I think we can close this out. I think it's been resolved. So I think item 10's all set.
Awesome.
But if something happens, if they could just double check before
Right.
we meet on April 1st. whatever it is.
So if anything, Attorney Bissonnette, if you can check, and then if something is different, maybe would you be able to fix it without giving?
Well, I think the easy fix is if it wasn't included, then we could just override the veto and then the language would be included.
All right, perfect. There you go. So then, for now, entertain a motion that this is complied with.
Sure, so moved.
Do I hear a second? All in favor, roll call vote. Councillor Vacan,
Yes.
Councillor McGrath Smith,
Yes.
Councillor Bartley,
Yes.
Councillor Jenny Rivera,
Yes.
and Councillor Israel Rivera is a yes. So,
Mr. Chairman, can we suspend rules and take up item 11 and 12 as a package?
yes, ma'am.
I'll second that.
All in favor? Yes. Aye. Item 11 is filed by Vacan, Bartley, McGivern, Lisi. Ordered that the setting of the sewer rate be returned from the City Council to the DPW Commission where it had been previously determined. And then item 12 is filed by Councilor McGee. Ordered that the DPW Commission return to reviewing and setting the sewer rate. So I put this one on because they both sounded the same, and I figured Vacan and Bartley can kind of take some of the lead on this because McGivern,
Yes.
Lisi, and McGee are not here. So if you'd like to go first, Councilor Vacan, feel free to do so.
Thank you. I would like to offer a motion that both of these be given leave to withdraw. They are both
And
very
I'm going to
dated.
second that, so just so.
Item 11 is extremely old and stale, and item 12 was a duplicate order in the jacket. So,
Awesome. And then you made the second. Do I hear any comments on the discussion before I go to the vote? Nope. Okay, on the vote, for the motion, Councilor Vacan, roll call vote.
yes.
Councilor McGrath Smith,
Yes.
Councilor Jenny Rivera,
Yes.
Councilor Dave Bartley,
Yes.
and then Councilor Israel Rivera is a yes too as well. So I entertain a motion to take up
13?
13.
Second.
Okay.
All in favor?
All right.
Aye.
13 was filed by Councilor Jenny Rivera, request for school zone designation and traffic safety measures on Ray Street. The new location of Lighthouse Holyoke at 92 Ray Street has raised safety concerns due to high traffic speeds. The Department of Public Works has indicated that the area needs to be designated as a school zone to improve safety. Request that the designation of Ray Street near 92 Ray Street as a school zone. Request installation of a temporary slow down signs in the area to enhance safety while the designation is processed. Councilor Jenny Rivera.
So this order, I filed it because I did receive email, I believe it was from the ED, requesting for the school zone change. I guess after they moved there was where they found out that it was in a school zone. So they just reached out to me to see how we could go about changing it to a school zone destination, because they were on Ray Street but on the other side.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, no, I am familiar with Lighthouse. They were going to purchase a building on Maple, and they ended up purchasing the old Gateway, well, not the old Gateway City Arts. And I guess it totally makes sense to file the order for a school zone, especially with them growing and having more kids in the area on that particular strip for Ray Street. The engineer's comments read here, to establish a school zone, the school should first be recognized by the Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education serving students in one or more grades between K and 12. If recognized as stated above, the establishment of the school zone needs to ultimately be approved by Mass DOT before being endorsed by the City Council. If the school is private, the school should provide a plan showing the routes that students will use to walk and or bike to the school and show the limits of the desired school zone. MUTCD no longer allows the use of children at play or slow children. See attached memo on why they are no longer used. I don't have the memo here, but we'll figure that out. The committee is asked to advise Lighthouse of these requirements, and this issue should be tabled. Okay, thank you. So, Jenny, after hearing the comments from the city engineer, it sounds like, or reading them, it sounds like there's some work maybe for them to do with Lighthouse with regards to getting designated as an actual school under the Massachusetts Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. And if they already have that license, then it would be for them to reach out to Mass DOT and to have the conversation around trying to get that designation on that street. So it sounds like this might be above us. We can help and like through the process, but it more than likely sounds like it's more of a state level initiative for them. So would you like for this order to be closed or complied with for the, well, I would say closed for the time being, and then you follow up with Lighthouse and let them know?
Sure.
Okay, so I entertain a motion for the, go ahead, Councilor Barley.
So the way I read this, it says, first off, they have to tell us that they're under DESI, right?
Right.
Okay, and if they are under DESI, then we have to determine if they're a private school. Isn't Lighthouse a private school?
They are actually a
Okay,
private school.
so the school then should provide a plan showing the routes that students will use to walk and or bike. So I think this is a live order. I think we just need to get some intel from Lighthouse.
I think that's the thing. I think
Am I missing something?
no, you're right. If they come and they say that yes, and the only reason why to me it didn't come to my head that they're a private school is because they accept public school students from the Holic district, but it's
Well, Mr.
recommended
Chair,
as
can't we, if I may,
No, go ahead.
can't we just have Jeff send them a communication, basically what the engineer said?
Yep.
And get back to us with something in writing? And to fill out the, they have to do some due diligence. I think there's a process and procedure that DESI expects. You can't just say, I'm private and here's where the kids cross. There's got to be something official.
So do we want to table this?
Well, you tell me, Jenny. I have no
Yeah.
idea. I mean, you're the one
That does make sense too.
do you want to talk to them down? I can't think of her name, but
It's Catherine.
yeah, she was on Maple, if I remember. So
Not anymore. I think she lives in Sargent now.
oh, she used to live in Maple.
Yep.
Yeah, okay, whatever. I don't even know where I'm going.
My bad.
But,
I'm sorry.
So, what do you want to do? Do you want to talk to her first?
Sure. We could table it. I'll speak with her because I know they're doing something because someone told them they're not in the school zone now since they moved. So I will sit down with her and then I'll get more information so we could table it.
Okay. Perfect. So I understand a motion to table it while Councilor Jenny Rivera goes and does some due diligence with Lighthouse. Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Roll call vote. Councilor Bacon,
Yes.
Councilor McGrath Smith, Councilor Bartley,
Yes.
and then Councilor Jenny Rivera,
Yes.
and Councilor Israel Rivera. Yes. Okay. Gotcha. So I entertain a motion for item 14.
So moved?
Some second,
All in favor? Aye.
aye.
This order was filed by Councilor Meg McGrath Smith. Order that Hampton Street's streetscape improvement from Waldo Street to Nonotuck Street blocks are made based on the recommendations of the city engineer with necessary changes made in ordinance to support necessary upgrades. Councilor McGrath Smith.
Thank you. And through the chair to Jeffrey. Jeffrey, could you bring the map up and the memo up on the screen? I don't see it in our packets.
Was it attached to the order?
No.
Okay, I'll just have to go back and look and find it in my emails.
Okay. Is it helpful if I resend it to you, Jeff?
Yeah, and then I can share it once you get back over to me.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, so this all started with an issue that we were having with a particular resident on the street whose driveway was continually being blocked, or egress, from the driveway was being made really difficult by people parking really close right into the driveway, so that it was really difficult to even get out safely onto Hamden, which again, the traffic can move pretty fast on that section of Hamden. Even though there was a no parking sign, and they really did all of their due diligence in terms of reaching out to the police department and asking for support with enforcement. But one of the conditions that really changed, this is right where the Siebel apartments are. One of the conditions that changed is last year they put in a ramp in order to help with folks who need to do, transport, delivery, if you're in a wheelchair, if you're trying to, get a bed up, that someone's delivered with a dolly, they put in a ramp. And the ramp is right on that side of the Siebel apartments and ends on Hamden right at a crosswalk. So what's happening in terms of usage is anyone like Salika, someone who is a transport service that's being used really regularly by residents of Siebel apartments, wants to pick somebody up who is in a wheelchair. Well, they're going to park on the crosswalk and wait for them to come out and come down. So we have an issue of that car is now making it really difficult for someone to get in and out of their driveway, but also often we're seeing issues of cars illegally parking on crosswalks. And the police are called, and, by the time the police get there, they've left, right? But it's happening really frequently, usually several times over the course of, 2 or 3 days. So it's happening really frequently. So then it became a conversation with Holyoke Housing Authority, and they were initially thinking that they maybe could change the ramp and make it diagonal so that it ended up kind of shuttering, kind of going across their property, so it will go a little bit further down and away from the crosswalk in the driveway. That was really expensive to do. And so they, weren't able to come up with the funding to do so, and the problem has now continued for almost a year. When I reached out to the city engineer, the interim Victoria Houle, to talk about it, they did their due diligence and went into ordinance, and then found that many things that are currently in practice on Hamden in that one section are not in our ordinances. And so she actually then, on her own initiative, decided that it made a whole lot more sense instead to move forward with an entire change, and actually listed in that memo all of the changes that need to be made in our ordinances in order to come into compliance with her proposed plan, which increases parking around this corridor of Hamden by taking away that one crosswalk in the middle. If you look at the map, you can see that there's one in the middle of the block, and there's one on both ends of the block. And so her proposal is that we remove the crosswalk that's in the middle. It's not a long block. And so instead you would have space to have a no parking zone and to have a temporary loading zone. So there's actually a place where you can park a car right next to the ramp, because that's how people are using it and are going to continue using it as long as that ramp is there. If you're doing a delivery or if you're picking up somebody for an appointment in a wheelchair. Right now, there is one handicap spot that's a bit of an issue, that blue spot that's right there, which I talked to Victoria about. She was like, well, the committee needs to vote to remove that spot so that can be another no parking spot, so that we don't continue to see issues of cars, parking kind of across the no parking zone, blocking that neighbor's driveway. But right now, it is there by ordinance. That person, I talked to HHA, no longer lives there. But again, that's part of this whole conversation we've been having around, there's always been a process to get a spot, but not a clear process to determine if someone is no longer using that spot, who that spot was originally created for. And I know that Councilor Bartley and other people have been working on what that next system is. So the goal would be, from my perspective, my motion would be to accept to remove that the handicap spot there in blue, turn that into a no parking spot, and to accept the rest of the map and ordinance changes as named by the interim engineer, and to send to DPW for their support in implementing the painting that would need to be done in order to do this.
This is awesome. My question, Meg, is who created this map?
Victoria Hool.
That's cool.
I'll second the motion.
Yeah, no, I think for me, it's just a lot of work went into this.
Yeah.
Good. I wish we could get the same map for other ones. There was a lot of other orders that were just simple answers.
She was surprised when she went to ordinance and was like, oh no,
Yeah.
it's not even clear where the bus stop is. And then she reached out to the PBTA and made sure that the bus stop actually was where it was supposed to be.
Right.
And was actually the space that they require versus
Oh,
it
this is
wasn't
great.
enough
This is
space for
great.
the bus actually.
This is really great. This is a really detailed map. It has everything put together. I really appreciate this. This really helps with the decision and the process. Councilor Bacon, I see your hand raised.
Yes, I would just like to add to the motion to send any of these ordinance changes to legal that require legal form.
Oh, yes. As part of the motion to make an amendment to the motion, right? Or
Yes.
is the motion made already? Okay.
I'll offer that as an amendment to the motion.
All right. Perfect. Any other comments? So, did I hear a second for the motion? Yeah, you did second it, right, Linda?
Yeah, the original one.
Yep. So, do I get a second for the amendment?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Roll call
Aye.
vote. Councilor Bacon?
Yes.
Councilor McGrath Smith?
Yes.
Councilor Jenny Rivera?
Yes.
Councilor Israel Rivera? Yes. And then Councilor Bartley? Yes. Entertain a motion to take, where are we at? 15?
Motion to take up item 15.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Item 15, this was, it doesn't say here, okay, this is filed by me. Order that the public safety team was referred in order for the city engineer to install 2 raised crosswalks on Samoset. Neighbors are complaining about the speeding up and down Samoset. Recommended that the order be referred to Ordinance Committee. The engineering's comments, traffic data collection, including 85th percentile speeds, is needed to properly evaluate this request. The committee is asked to identify a funding source to support this effort. Does she know that we don't appropriate funds? I don't. This is 15. Support this effort as well as those related to other and new and table the request for speed humps or raised crosswalks. Yes, and then I thought with the raised crosswalks we could get just signatures. Is that not correct? Is that not true? Councilor Bacon.
So, Mr. Chairman, we did pass an ordinance that for raised crosswalks, the process would be the same as for adding a speed hump, which does ask for a petition from the residents seeking it to be installed.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. I just wanted to be clear on that because that wasn't mentioned here. What's mentioned is the collection of the 85th percentile data.
Yeah.
Which I understand that piece too, but there's another way around it. So, yeah. So if for me, I'm okay with this order to just be leave to withdraw for the time being, and I'll allow for Councilor Rivera and myself maybe meet and kind of talk to some of the residents on Samoset and see if they would like to do the petition with regards to for raised crosswalks. Councilor
I'll
Rivera?
second that.
Yeah. So to my understanding is there was a petition. However, it had all the residents there, which is not a lot of residents in that area. But then the petition also was signed by staff members from Kelly
From the
School.
school district.
So I don't know if that made it invalid because it had other people's signatures on it that was
Okay.
not the residents. But the
I don't
residents
think
did.
it,
Doesn't matter?
I don't think so.
so-
They just wouldn't count.
Right, they wouldn't count. So let's check in with this. We'll make this leave to withdraw for now. We'll check in with the city clerk and then follow up and file another order if anything.
All right.
So you already motioned it. Linda seconded it. So on the roll call vote, for the motion for this order to be left to be filed as leave to withdraw. Councilor Vacan,
Yes,
Councilor McGrath Smith,
Yes.
Councilor Jenny Rivera,
Yes.
Councilor Dave Bartley, and then Councilor Israel Rivera. Yes. We should have took it up as a package with 16. 16 is the same thing. Entertain a motion to take up item 16.
So moved.
All in favor?
second.
Aye.
Aye.
Matter of fact, take 17 with it.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
For 16 is the Committee on Public Safety order that temporary speed humps be placed on Taylor Street to be followed by permanent speed humps for resident safety. This is a densely populated and highly trafficked through street due to its proximity to a grocery store and its one-way direction. Petition attached. So they've actually done the petition. Here, the comments from the engineer: data collection, including 85th percentile speeds, is needed to properly evaluate this request. The committee is asked to identify a funding source, again, to support this effort, as well as those related to the other newly tabled requests for these speed humps or raised crosswalks. It is further noticed that placement of temporary speed humps should only be done after the assessment of initial data, as neither the appropriateness of the initial installation nor the effectiveness of the temporary measure can be assessed without this data. So that's 16. And then 17, it's a Committee on Public Safety to whom was referred and ordered by constituent request, ordered that the crosswalks be installed with the parking lot on Canal serving business in the block between Water and Appleton Streets. And I believe that's the GTI building that they're talking about. Recommended that the order be referred to Ordinance Committee. So 17 sounds like it's a duplication of the order that we already spoke about with the parking lot with GTI and the crosswalk. They're asking for a crosswalk to be installed with the parking lot on Canal serving businesses.
So I just want to give leave to withdraw.
I would do leave to withdraw for the
So moved.
17. That was okay. That was fine.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Roll call vote. Councilor Vacan,
Yes.
Councilor McGrath Smith,
Yes.
Councilor Bartley,
Yes.
Councilor Jenny Rivera,
Yes.
Councilor Israel Rivera. Yes. And then 16. That was filed by Givner and Tallman as well. I would leave to withdraw or close it for now. It's up to whoever wants to file the motion, and I'll have the conversation with Councilor Givner as to how best she would like to approach this. Or maybe should I table it because she had the petition and the signatures already. I'm entertaining. Yeah, I'll take that. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Roll call
Are we
vote.
tabling it?
Yes, the roll call vote and the
Okay.
motion is to table just because Councilor Givner's not here and I don't.
Sure.
So Councilor Vacan,
Yes.
Councilor McGrath Smith,
Yes.
Councilor Bartley,
Yes.
Councilor Jenny Rivera,
Yes.
and Councilor Israel Rivera, yes. So 16, 17. Then entertain a motion to take up item 18.
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Committee on Public Safety, whom was referred in order that the city accept Lynn Ann Drive and Richard Eager Drive as public ways at Ogden Street, recommended that the order be referred to Ordinance Committee. This one was filed by Councilor Tessa Murphy Ramboletti, currently not here, but the engineering comments. Engineering has completed additional research regarding prior acceptance of these streets, and some records were found supporting that Richard Eaker was accepted as a public way. Petition was made to Mass DOT to recognize Richard Eaker Drive as a city-owned, and requested was accepted. No definitive information was found to support formal acceptance of Lynn Ann Drive. Survey has been completed to lay out the proposed right-of-way limits for Lynn Ann Drive. Next steps to requesting acceptance should be verified by the solicitor's office, but may include both. Petition to City Council in accordance with Holy Code Ordinance Section 7881. No street shall be relocated, laid out, and established, altered, or discontinued, except upon petition therefore presented to the City Council and be it referred to the Board of Public Works. Referral to the Planning Board for its review. I'm a little confused. Go ahead, Councilor.
Mr. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I originally filed this order in April of 2023. So it's been a long time and it's gone on a long route. So I don't know if you received my email that I sent you today,
Yes, I
Mr.
did.
Chairman?
Yes, I did.
Okay. So the required petition that the engineer is noting here was submitted to the clerk in April. I believe it was probably officially received by council and sent to the Board of Public Works in May. So that has been completed. And our ordinances require that the Board of Public Works does the review for the acceptance of the street and makes the recommendation back to City Council. So what I would like to do is offer a motion that we accept Richard Eager Drive and ask the clerk to add it to the book of accepted public ways as the first motion, because the state has already accepted it.
I'll second that.
Seconded by Councilor Bartley.
And so that one, if we could pass it, I don't believe requires any more work.
Okay, under discussion real quick, Councilor McGrath-Smith.
I was just wondering, of the purpose of accepting these. We have many private roads across the city, and I'm sure many residents would love to see their roads accepted. I'd love a little bit of the backstory, just because I'm coming in here right at the tail end of a process that I'm hearing has been long. Just a brief and brilliant, why are we accepting these versus all of the private roads that would like to be accepted?
Through the chair, if I may, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, you may.
So these roads are regular city streets that for some reason, back in the day of construction, were not entered into the book. It appears that it was more of a paperwork issue than anything. They've never been a private road, so we're not changing their delineation. We are simply correcting something that wasn't done back in the day when the neighborhood was constructed. When I spoke with the engineer, she said it's very odd because Lynn Ann Drive is a road that Ernst is off of. So how could you have a non-accepted street with an accepted street running off it? So it appears that it was an age-old paperwork snafu. The reason it got to my attention was they were supposed to do that whole neighborhood now almost 2 years ago. And the engineer at the time discovered that they hadn't been accepted in the book, so they couldn't get the Chapter 90 money. So he didn't want to do it and have the taxpayers have to pay the full freight. So that's why I ran out, got the petitions done so that they could get accepted as a matter of completing paperwork rather than, to your point, of taking a private way and making it public. So the surveys have been done. It doesn't require takings or any other construction or changes to the roadway, as I'm understanding it. It's simply an old paperwork issue. So the petition has been filed, the surveys have been completed, and I'd like to make a motion that we accept Lynn Ann as a public way pending the report from the Board of Public Works, who has it over in their department, and we can provide it again if they can't find the petition. Thank
Is,
you.
is that a different motion from the one that you just made, Counselor?
Yes,
Yeah,
Richard
it's different
Eager
street.
is a separate road.
So
From
we gotta take the
Lynn
vote
Ann.
on the first one then, right?
Yes, please.
Which was Richard Eager. So before we do that other motion, let's take the vote on the Richard Eager one. So on the
Okay.
motion for Richard Eager, Counselor Bacon,
Yes.
roll call vote, Counselor McGrath Smith?
This is to table
No,
that one.
no, to accept Richard Eager
I thought Lynn Ann Drive was the one that was. Oh, Lynn Ann is not the one.
is not the one.
So
They're
sorry.
both,
I also see Ogden Street is handwritten on the actual order. That
I
was
see
the
that
other
too.
part of my question. It's
But let's do the Eager first, and then we'll get to that.
okay.
Because Eager is accepted already.
Okay.
So just, Bacon voted yes.
Yes.
McGrath Smith, yes.
Yes.
Jenny Rivera,
Yes.
Bartley.
Yes.
And Israel Rivera, yes. And then now we go on to the other motion, which was to accept Lynn under,
Lynn Ann Drive,
yep, under,
to be accepted as a public way and entered by our city clerk into the book of accepted public ways, pending receipt of the recommendation from the Board of Public Works, please.
I'll second that.
a second from Counselor Bartley, and then under discussion, go ahead with the Ogden Street question if you want to ask that.
Should we amend that in order to add Ogden, or
I don't-
through the
I
chair
don't know
to Councilor
anything.
Bacon, if we should do the Ogden separately, because it does say Ogden there on the document, and the clerk's signature is on it. Okay.
Through the chair, I don't know
Yes.
anything about Ogden Street.
Okay,
In a different part.
so then I guess what we'll do is we'll do the motion of just accepting the motion that you just did. We'll do that one. And with Ogden,
So
go ahead, Counselor.
So Ogden on the map is, it's in like a really established neighborhood, in the circle of Arden, Brennan, and Fenton, off of 202. And it's like one of the streets in the grid there.
Is there a way for us to just break off Ogden and table that so we can come back to it?
What ward is Ogden in? It's not 5.
It's right across from HCC. It's in Bartley Ford.
Then it's
Three?
Ward 3.
That's,
Yeah.
Okay. So, is there a way to break it off?
Or do we also just move Ogden forward? I mean,
Or do we move
clearly
it
it's-
forward and then
So
have the conversation? Go ahead.
if we could vote on Richard Eager and then
We did,
we would have to,
we did Richard Eager already.
I thought we did Lynn Ann.
No, we're doing Lynn Ann right now.
Okay, we're doing Lynn Ann. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Lynn Ann.
So the question right now is if it makes sense to make an amendment and add in Ogden, and I'd have to say that it doesn't hurt to add in Ogden because the way you phrased the motion is that if it's approved by the state for it to be an accepted street. So if for some reason Ogden is not approved, then it doesn't go through.
Right, but my only comment on that would be because I don't know. I know I submitted the petition for Lynn Ann.
Yep.
I don't know if a petition was submitted for Ogden from the neighborhood or not.
Not yet,
Okay.
but I think that
So-
if we could put it moving
That-
forward, and if that's okay with Councilor Bartley, if we could move it forward now and have that petition put in or not, I don't know.
Okay, I mean,
Can you speak?
can we just take them one at a time? And
Yeah, I'm just hearing from Councilor Bartley right now.
That's what I would think.
Okay, one at a time.
It's just to each street individually.
Okay, perfect. So then we'll, on the motion for the vote for Lynn Ann Drive to be accepted, considering it's accepted at the state level, roll call.
Pending the Board of Public Works on that one.
There you go. Pending the Board of Public Works, roll call vote. Councilor Reagan,
Yes.
Councilor McGrath Smith,
Yes.
Councilor Israel Rivera, yes. Councilor Jenny Rivera,
Yes.
Councilor Bartley,
Yes.
yes. And then the add Ogden part, and I'm gonna have to say that I don't think the engineer made any comments on the Ogden one either.
No, we don't have a.
So,
petitions.
yeah, so what we'll do is motion to table
Table.
Ogden Street, and follow up within maybe 30, 45 days or something like that. And I'll put it back on the agenda, and then we'll see where it's at then with regards to making that one a public street. So do I hear a motion to table Ogden?
So moved?
All
Second.
there you go. Roll call vote. Counselor Bacon,
Yes.
Counselor McGrath Smith,
Yes.
Counselor Jenny Rivera,
Yes.
Counselor Bartley,
Yes.
and Counselor Israel Rivera, yes. Is there a way we can
Thank
take
you
up
all.
out of order the ones for the Board of Health? Because
21.
I noticed that we had Tim and Eric. I noticed a while ago, but I didn't think it was going to take this long to get here. And
What are you gonna do?
that's 21,
Motion to
right?
take up item 21?
So item, do I hear a second?
Yep, second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Item 21 was filed by Counselor Devine and Counselor Givner. Order that the directors of Board of Health, Zoning, Planning, and the Animal Control Officer and Law Department meet with the Ordinance Committee to discuss Ordinance Section 14-12 as it relates to number 2, hens, specifically the keeping of hens definitions, special permit process specifications and dimensions, general regulations, violations, and any and all regulations with state, federal, that may be pertinent. So we have Tim Rivers, Eric from Animal Control, and Leslie Ward from the Building Department with us. What I will say is we don't have Counselor Givner and Counselor Devine. They couldn't make it today. So I would just like to hear from the department heads. This is being recorded. I'm sure both Counselor Givner and Counselor Devine can go back and listen to the recordings with regards to what comments were made. So I'll allow for you guys to have the floor, if anything. And I see Leslie has unmuted herself. So it sounds like you want to go first.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay. So the reason that we have not allowed chickens within the public, within the other zones besides the agricultural zone, there are lots of different reasons. The table of permitted uses in the zoning ordinance 4.4.2, permitted uses for accessory use, it reads, animals accessory to dwellings, including cattle, horses, sheep, hogs, goats, game birds, or similar livestock shall be permitted accessory to a dwelling. Such animals and their waste shall be contained at least 100 feet from any abutting lot line of a residentially used lot, and at least 100 feet from any year-round surface water body. So, and that is only allowed in the RA agricultural zone. As you can see, written right in that description, it talks about the waste being only allowed a certain distance from lot lines. And that is for several reasons. There's odor mitigation problems, there's neighbor complaint problems. So that brings to mind my first point, which is when we're bringing these animals into close quarters from the country into the city, we're going to have some inherent problems with doing that. And this, just the waste is one example. The other example, the other points I would like to make would be noise. Now I know it says hens, so we're taking the rooster situation out of the question altogether. But this just seems, not only is it a public health issue as far as waste directly in the city in a densely populated area, but also we're going to get complaints. We're going to get complaints from abutters, and that just increases the workload for the people that have to enforce the ordinances. And I have to address every complaint that I get, and that takes time. So I see this expanding this as a possible problem administratively from an enforcement standpoint for all of those reasons. And that is my 2 cents. And I will allow the floor, I'll yield the floor. Thank you.
Thank you. Tim, I see you've been muted.
So Leslie, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
So Leslie did go over a lot of the same issues that I was seeing with it. I know this was brought to ordinance in 2020 where Dr. Esteban had 6 issues in it with it, and they're pretty much exactly the same. If you were to change ordinance, humane chicken coops require at least 4 feet. Square feet per hen, 10 square feet of run per bird. Then there's also the issue of the property lines. How close can they be? I saw Boston had 25 feet from a property line, but like Leslie said, if somebody complains and we say, well, this is our new ordinance, we're doing 25 feet, but yet you have somebody saying, well, this isn't how, you know, I always stay outside now, all I can smell is, you know, chicken, you know, their waste and
People smell
everything like that, you get those problems. Then you also have chicken feed. When you feed chickens, you're inviting rodents in. We already have significantly with our housing complaints. I would say if I'm in, this is just guessing, with our housing complaints, like 50% of them will say I have rodents as well. Well, when you're inviting chicken feed into densely populated neighborhoods, that when, you know, people already bring in the possibility of more rodents, but then you also add the fact that you're feeding chickens, you have that as well, and with rodents come disease. Another an issue that was brought up is the yards being rinsed due to the fact that they produce so much waste. Then you have children that might, you know, see them as pets, playing with them. They're a highly susceptible population to, you know, salmonella. You have those issues there. Then you have also noise issues.
Real quick, Tim, and maybe
Yeah.
you can help me kind of understand a little bit, because before in 2020 when it came up, like I wasn't a counselor yet, and to me it was like it's simple. Like people can have, why can't you have like your eggs or your chickens? And then when they said in the buildings, now I understood that kind of makes sense, right? I'm a property owner now, and I have a backyard, and it doesn't kind of make sense, but then it does when you start saying all the stuff about safety and then the health and all the other stuff. But then I go to Puerto Rico, right? And I walk down the street and I see chickens walking down the street like they're squirrels. So I'm confused as to all the issues where we arise around health and runoff and all the other stuff, where in Puerto Rico, like chickens are literally like pigeons.
I do see what you're saying in that.
So,
and then
like-
one of my food. Oh, sorry.
Nah, go ahead. So that's the part for me and a lot of people in the community where they don't understand. Like, we understand a lot of the issues that are being raised. And I think for me, the intention with the order, and maybe I'll check in with Counselor Givner and Divine, a lot of the things you guys are bringing up are very valid points. I think for them, it's what would it look like if we wanted to do something like that, right? Considering all the points that you brought up, right? What could it look like if it was something that we wanted to entertain? Considering all the other things, like if that was it, like what would that look like? And I think that might be the intent. But go ahead.
Well, one thing I just want to say is I see what you're saying about, like, I've been to places that have, you go to a restaurant and chickens are running up and down the street. I've been to a few places like that. In one of my food safety trainings, I'm not sure which one it was, there was something about immune system, that people in rural areas are less likely because of their exposure, and then cities to get some of like salmonella and some of those other things that, you know, working on a farm you're exposed to often. So that might kind of answer that, but I could get you more documentation or see if I can find more
So
documentation
like herd
on that.
immunity type thing, like a herd immunity type of thing, it sounds like.
No, just your exposure, your immune system would be, it would recognize that like viruses and bacteria more often. That was one thing like with COVID where nobody had any exposure to it, so it was really hitting people harder. That you heard of a lot. So that may be a reason, and that's something I can look into and see if I can find any documentation. That's more from my memory of a training that I've taken. To answer your second question on what would that look like, I think that would look like, possibly whether it be through ordinance or Board of Health regulation, they would have to get a permit. Whomever is the entity that would be writing the ordinance or regulation would have to say how many feet. How are we gonna deal with complaints? Like if we say it's 25 feet, it's 25 feet, but that's just something we have to take into account is if we get those complaints.
Compliance,
I mean,
yes.
That might be a determination of how many feet we're looking at. Also, what is enforcement? What does it look like if somebody is selling eggs when they shouldn't be selling them? They're supposed to be using them for their own consumption. What is the enforcement of that? Like, do they go before the board and as a possible revocation of their permit, or that part of it? That's what you would see. I'm just trying to think of anything else. Yeah.
No, thank you. And I appreciate you entertaining that, because I think the last time in 2020, I think as a constituent for me in listening to it, it was more about like, yes, I hear a lot of barriers and reasons why we shouldn't do it, but like even just having a plan, if we were to entertain it, this is the way this is how it would roll out. But if it gets voted down, then it gets voted down. But if it gets voted yes, there would be somewhat of a plan to go through and move forward. But I appreciate that.
I think it would also be important to have like a butters notification as well in a plan like that.
That's perfect. And then I see Leslie Ward's hand raised, and then I'll recognize Kevin. Oh, well, after
Kevin, yeah, Kevin's up there.
Kevin and then Meg. Leslie, I saw your hand raised.
Yes, so thank you, Mr. Chairman. One point I wanted to make is that maybe we're not really thinking outside the box here. We could possibly entertain ideas, because I'm all about finding solutions. I think that's something that is extremely important, is to find solutions to allow people to do what they really want to do and live how they want to live. It has to work for everyone.
Right, it has to make sense.
It does have to make sense. And I'm thinking that maybe we could propose some completely new ideas, such as spaces. We do community gardens. Why can't we do an area designated just for chickens or something like that, and have people buy shares or something, or some sort of solution. I'm not saying that is
I appreciate that.
The solution, but I believe that we could come up with something that would mitigate the numbers of complaints that we will get from butters, and centralize them so that the citizens of the city still have access to chickens that they want to have access to.
That's perfect. I appreciate that. And Councilor Jordan.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. The council, I remember, I want to say it was in the 2014-2015 term, actually did take a vote on an ordinance on this issue. And I know Councilor Lisi was advocating for it at the time, and it did come to a vote. The council did vote it down, but there were certain protections put in place. I know she wasn't that happy the way it came out with some of them, and in the end we ended up not doing anything because we didn't want to have backyard chickens. It ultimately proved to be uncontrollable in the way that you would want, and I'm gonna elaborate some of those. But having said that, if we were to do it, some of the things that did come out in the wash as we considered that ordinance was that if you were to get them, it had to be by special permit.
Right.
So that is to say, the neighbors, so if, would get notice and would have a right to say no. And then the council would have to say by 2/3 vote, give person X this special permit to have chickens in their backyard. It wasn't by right, so that you pass an ordinance now and it's the wild, wild west with anybody and anybody under whatever size of a yard you have in the back can just come in and apply for a permit, because currently the zoning says 5 acres or more. You have to be in the RA zone. So now if we do away with that, this could be in any residential zone, theoretically. So I don't know if we're gonna have minimum lot sizes or whatnot, but the special permit process, I would think, would be a must, because if person X wants it, but every other person or the abutters all say no, well, their property rights should be respected as well, right? If I'm 90 years old and I like to sit in my backyard and mind my business, and then my neighbor moves in next door and wants to have 30, 40, 50 chickens running around and smelling up the place and Lord knows what else, you know, I should have a right. Doesn't my property rights matter too, right? Like, I should have a voice in saying that. And if I don't like the way you vote on the special permit, I can say, well, to hell with all of you and I'm voting you out, right? That's the American way. The other thing is obviously no roosters. In that ordinance, you have to prohibit roosters. Not that we don't like roosters, but roosters are very loud and they also can be aggressive. You're gonna have to have a lot of rules around fencing. Certain citizens who have come forward to do these things illegally have run afoul with their neighbors many times. And I know Board of Health has had to show up. I know one particular one not that long ago, I think it was about a year ago, in the Ward 6 neighborhood. The Board of Health was called when there was quite a number of chickens walking around the neighborhood with roosters and the whole 9 yards. People think, oh, I just move into Holyoke and I'm out in the country, like I can do whatever, you know? And rules don't apply to them. Well, you're good luck if we allow this, because you're gonna have, we've never had significant agricultural use on small residential backyards. So Board of Health, good luck enforcing all of that if that becomes the day. Now, if people want to have, like, they all chip in on like a community garden and everybody wants to chip in and say, here, we're going to have 60, 80 chickens and everybody's on board and do it in these type of community spaces, great, you know. But I'm just saying, respect everybody's rights, you know, not just the person that wants chickens, because there is concerns around it. That's why I never could get really behind backyard chickens, because I see this as fraught with a lot of concerns to just allow it anywhere in residential. That was the concern. That became the concern when the council's taken this up the last couple of times. So it's a tricky issue, because on the other hand, I do believe, you know, in property rights, and I go out of my way to support people doing what they want on their property. But when it does impact your neighbors, you know, you also have to respect the abutters too. So thank you.
So just real quick, and maybe this is a question for Councilor Bartley. In Ward 3, I believe it is, there's a house right next to Blessed Sacrament that has eggs for sale. I know they don't sell eggs now, but at one time, right? No, they have the sign. It literally says it there. I don't think they do anymore. It's a really old house. But at one time, it looks like they sold it, and was it a difference or was it a different?
See, our Hammers eggs, they didn't have roosters, they didn't have hens on.
They didn't have hens?
No, he has a farm.
Oh, further down, and he would transfer the eggs down there and sell them there.
He just
Okay.
sold the egg, didn't have them there, yeah. So, hope
So
that helps.
just yeah, thank you for that. So I hear you and all that. And I imagine that yes, there would be a process where you would have to apply and get permitted for it to happen. I agree. I think that to come from a position of figuring out what's the best way to approach a situation like this, especially considering the times that we're in, and now you're buying eggs for about $10 a dozen or $9.50 a dozen. The other day I paid $12. It depends what store I go to, right? It's different. Some people might want to take the onus and save some money so that they can do some of this. What the limits are? Is it 2 hens or is it 1 hen? Is it 3 acres, 4 acres, or whatever it is? I think that's the purpose or the intention of filing the order and having the conversation, trying to bring everyone together and try to find out what the democratic process is for everyone to come to a conclusion, and make it beneficial for everyone. I know if my neighbors had some, I have neighbors that have dogs, and where I live on the corner of my house, it's the corner right next to the park, and everybody's dogs pees and poops right on the corner of my house. Am I calling the Board of Health every day for that? I probably should, maybe, just to make sure that they're not peeing and pooping on my yard. But there's things that, as neighborly neighbors, I have the conversations and try to mitigate the situations, and within my community. Leslie, I see your hand raised again.
Thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to say I wholeheartedly agree with Councilor Jourdain's estimation and recounting of the process that was brought up, the special permit process, and establishing absolute guidelines for when they're allowable and when they're not allowable, and how many, and a butters notification and a butters process and a special permit. All of that process has to be ironed out if we're going to do this, in my opinion. To try and think about all of these things, so that we can mitigate the impact, the negative impact, for everyone involved and the city in general, including the departments that have to enforce these ordinances. I do think that people should be allowed to live and use their land the way they want to, but by the same token, we don't have the same kind of landscape as they do in Puerto Rico. I know you brought that up.
I know in Chicopee, because in Chicopee you could have them too. There are neighboring communities where you can have hens, and I think that's the part for me. It's like we're more strict than the neighboring communities are, and I think it's trying to figure out how can you fit in the place where there's a happy medium. But yeah, I just use Puerto Rico as an example because they're like squirrels over there, and there's no salmonella going rampant.
Maybe we look at their ordinance and see what, compare it and do some studies. But my whole point in just raising my hand was to eventually come to the point that I think that this is a big conversation.
Yes,
that requires a committee. I don't think this is something that we're going to hammer out in just one discussion. I'm not saying don't do it. Absolutely not. But I think that there's a lot of stuff involved, a lot of points that have to be hammered out before something like this can really come to fruition in Holyoke.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that feedback. I really do. And I'm inclined to be favor of what Councilor Jordan said too about the special permit pieces. Councilor Bartley, and then I'll recognize Eric with his hand raised.
Oh, yeah, I'll go after Eric.
Okay, Eric, can you go? And then Councilor Bartley will go after you.
Yes, sure. And I appreciate everyone's time, of course. Councilor Jordan made some very extremely valid points, as did Leslie and Tim. And I think we're getting away from the benefits, right? We're talking the benefits of having eggs and having sustainability and having food production and having a time to maybe make it educational for the family, for the kids. There's some economic benefits, of course, that support urban agriculture. With all that said, there's many risks that far outweigh, unfortunately, the benefits. And getting back to sort of the lot sizes are extremely too small, far too small in the inner cities, that would be able to support these animals and keep them safe, keep them healthy, keep them away maybe probably from other animals. There's an attractive nuisance, right? So we're talking where there's chickens, there's probably mice, there's probably going to attract snakes, that's probably going to attract other foxes and coyotes and such further into the inner cities. And I understand that someone mentioned something about noise, and maybe perhaps that roosters are the only ones that kind of make the noise, but that's not entirely true. The hens make a lot of noise, and it could be a nuisance to the neighborhood, as Councilor Jordan mentioned, that there could be a nuisance to the neighborhood. Now you're talking maybe property goes down for whatever reason. You can't sell your house because you have 3 or 4 neighbors with chickens. So there's a lot to be said for the keeping of these backyard hens, and then there's a lot of negative to be said for keeping of these backyard hens. But I will keep all of this, and I can absolutely go ahead and email anyone, Linda Bacon, Councilor Jordan, anyone who wants sort of this information. I also have, I know we were talking about several years ago where Councilor Lisi, everything was sort of voted down. We had an application, a keeping of hens application, already kind of done up as a I don't know, like kind of, we just did it up, and we'll see where council takes it. But we had an application already kind of set up in the works. I'm willing to work with folks, understanding that hens may be an issue at times. Also, I feel like we need to consider housing for these guys, and who's going to maybe take them on. If we have dogs that get loose all the time, we have cats all over the place. What happens when your neighbor's chickens get loose and nobody's around to maybe take them? So now I have to take them, or TJO comes by, and what happens? They get destroyed. Unfortunately, this is the reason why I give people the opportunity to relocate their own hens, because I know the final outcome for these birds if the city takes them. So I give the people the benefit to say, hey, listen, you have 10 days, maybe you have 2 weeks to remove the birds from an area that is not zoned appropriately for these animals.
Thank you, Eric. I appreciate that. And again, like Leslie mentioned, this is not thing that we'd be able to handle just in one day. It would make sense for us to get together and maybe put some actual data together around a lot of the things that were said tonight, having some resources, something that we can cite and refer back to, some concrete data, because a lot of this is kind of going based on what we're kind of just saying right now. But Councilor Bartley?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I first of all, just on a procedural thing, I hope we can just move this out of committee, say it was complied with, because I think the smartest thing we heard tonight was one of the participants said that perhaps an ad hoc committee should be established. You're not going to get it. Let me just finish what I'm going to say, and then an ad hoc committee should be established. You're not going to get whatever it is that you think you're going to get in terms of data and a historical perspective in this ordinance committee. That's one.
You're not.
That's one.
That's correct.
Number two is, I need to take issue with the vote we took 5 years ago was based upon data. It's remarkable because I hear this rhetoric constantly. We've had turnover, tons of turnover in all our departments, but the three key departments are here tonight, plenty of turnover, but the message is 100% consistent today as it was then. Hasn't changed a whit. Rodents, mice, fox, snakes, noise, odors. That is, and enforcement. None of that, that was exactly what was before us 5 years ago. That's exactly what the different department heads, same professionals, but different individuals, said then. They're saying the exact same thing now. One thing that we heard when a few years ago, especially some of the counselors who aren't here, but they're still on the board, special permits. We're sick of special permits. Well, now, what did I just hear? I heard the exact opposite. Oh, we should do this by special. Well, who's going to be the permit granting authority? Does the Board of Health want to take that on? Should they take it on? Does the City Council want to take it on? Oh, that'd be fun, because we know how much we love special permits in this body, and I know I can imagine how fun those meetings would be. I'm just suggesting, Mr. Chair, this is an issue that it should be looked at. I have no problem with an ad hoc committee. I have a big problem keeping this in ordinance, and let it perpetuate for years and months and years like the other time did. I just think you had the right people in. We heard what they had to say. Now, whether you want to accept it, that's fine. But I think if you set up an ad hoc committee, bring in any expert you want, set it up offline, and then have them come back with a report that we can all digest, I truly think that's the best way to maybe come up with an answer. And I'm not Nostradamus. I'm not going to predict what the answer is going to be, but I'm going to say that really, I just think that's a wise idea, and I would be all for that. And I would hope that would be staffed by the professional staff, and certainly Ms. Devine and Ms. Gibner. I think they're wonderful advocates to co-file this order, and then get some people from the public. I think it would be a great opportunity for learning. I know I would like to hear. I don't want to be on the committee, but I know I would attend many of the meetings. I'd like to hear more about the perspectives, because it's important for me as a resident. It's important for me as a resident to really hear the perspectives of people who want this, and those professionals, especially in the healthcare. We have so many health issues in this city. We're always talking about that. So to add potential more, I don't know if that's the best way. But so I'm going to make the motion now, as I just have the floor. I'm going to make a motion now that the order's been complied with.
Second.
Under discussion. So the motion was made and it was seconded. I will not be voting for it to be complied with, just like the other ones. If you weren't here, or if anyone's not here for the order that they filed, I will respect that and table it until you're actually present so that you can speak on the order that you filed. So I'm not going to vote for it to be complied with. I will vote for it to be tabled. I will make a motion if it doesn't pass for it to be tabled. But with just to comment on some of the data pieces, right? Yes, this was taken up a while ago, and I think some of the intentions, and I think it should have been a lot easier if this was taken up a while ago and data was presented then, because we should already have the data. We should already be able to have just a slideshow, I guess, right, of all the things and the information that was researched in the past that could have been presented tonight, that could have been here tonight. But instead, we're being referred to do another ad hoc committee or another round of research, once again, around this topic that has been researched heavily, according to what I've heard in the past, right? So I guess we're at a point where, yes, the ad hoc committee or a committee on the side makes sense, but the ordinance doesn't have the power. Our ordinance committee doesn't have a power to create that right now. That would be a recommendation to the mayor, possibly, to create this ad hoc committee, or a recommendation to the president of the council to see if that's something that we could entertain or do. But with that being said, on the motion was made that this is.
Chair, can I just correct that under the discussion?
Oh, sure. Go ahead. You can correct if I said something wrong. Feel free.
No, it's not wrong. But just so you're aware, I didn't want to take the chance a few years ago with Whiting Reservoir. So we created by ordinance an ad hoc committee.
Okay, that's good.
So I think,
Is that a separate file, order to file?
sir, yes, I would do it that way. So what I would suggest, if you and anybody else want, I'll do it with you, I can care less. You can establish by ordinance an ad hoc committee that would look specifically at this. And again, you weren't here when it happened, but that committee was established, about the Whiting Reservoir.
Right.
And they created a 65, 70-page report with all the data. They had wonderful meetings on the
Nice.
Zoom, all during the COVID time. So all that data was collected. So we don't have to rely on the mayor or the president on our own.
That's perfect.
No, and Mike Sullivan and I said, because we really wanted to, Mike had his take on what should happen. I had my take, but we said, well, maybe we don't agree, but we should get independent people to come back to us. And how do we do that? Well, we filed the order to create the ordinance, and the ordinance was put into law, and they did, that committee did just a great job. And they basically disagree with both of us. And that's fine, but it was, so, I was wrong, he was wrong, but we listened to them.
That makes sense. All right.
So that's how that worked. I just want you to know that.
Okay. So then,
There's precedent for it.
so I'll talk to Councilor Givner and Councilor Devine and the Madam
I'm
President
saying,
around filing an order.
There's precedent for it.
Yes. Yes.
So, and I hear you what they said, but they're not here. But really, do you think the verbiage is going to change?
No, I know, and I understand that. I just out of
No, sir.
out of respect,
No,
that's the only thing for me.
Well, I respect them. I don't want to be known that I don't respect them.
No, I'm not
Order.
saying that. Yeah.
But I hear what you're saying. But I think the two were, I think it was Leslie who said, I hate saying it was some speaker. I think it doesn't matter, but somebody said it, make a committee.
Yep.
And
No, that's
now you know that's Whiting Reservoir. I mean, that's like an important thing.
Yep. No, I agree.
And because of that committee, no elected officials, but you had leaders.
Right.
And you had strong leaders, and they did an unbelievable job. And my ideas were shot down. It hurt my feelings. Well, boo-hoo. Same way with Mike. But they got what and now it's being implemented by the waterworks.
Yep.
And it worked out great.
Perfect. That's great.
I would say it's not a bad thing to consider.
No,
moving this along. But
no.
hey,
Thank you. Leslie, I see your hand raised again.
Thank you. I just wanted to add the comment that you have several individuals that work for the city that have shown up for this this committee and discussed this this topic, and I see that if we don't suggest that a committee be formed, then I fear that possibly we will have to come in front of you again. And not that I don't want to, not that I don't like seeing all of you, but we work really hard during the day.
No,
And I just don't want to repeat efforts and repeat the same kinds of conversations if we can possibly get the committee going. that might save a lot of the possibility of having to have to repeat efforts by department heads and the animal control officer. And when I think we've said our piece anyway, and I have all the respect in the world for the counselors who are absent at the moment. And I'm kind of surprised that this issue wasn't tabled, actually.
That was my plan. I just wanted to have you guys share your piece and have them watch the video and then table it, and then come the next time there's an actual conversation about it. But that was kind of the approach that I kind of wanted to do, because I have a lot of stuff in the jacket, and I wanted to just get as many as I can out of the way. And for this one particularly, I didn't expect it for it to be solved today or to be complied with or any of that. I think the thing was the ad hoc committee suggestion is a great suggestion. That's something that would be great to follow up with, and I think that's part of the intention for me bringing it up, because if I pushed it down a little longer, it would be continuous. It would be what we're referring to. We'll have conversations, and then it'll come up in the news, and it'll come up in different places, and it'll draw the lure that it drew the last time. And not for nothing, I'm tired of the attention. With that said, I see Jeff has his hand up, and then I'll recognize Eric after.
Yeah, I just thought it was an important technical detail to note that when this last came through, because there's a change to the zoning ordinance, it had to be done through a public hearing.
So it would have to be a public hearing too as well. That's what you're saying?
Yep.
Okay,
Yes.
perfect. And then Eric?
Sorry, I was trying to figure this thing out.
No worries.
So I think it's important to also note that I am the only enforcing animal officer in the city, and this falls completely on my shoulders to follow up, as far as I've got to inspect these animals yearly, as I do as an agent for the state. At that point. MDAR sends me the book, and I inspect all these animals. I've got to do this on a yearly basis. So I think that's one thing to note. Secondly, that TJO does not take chickens or handle them in any way, which means that essentially we would need to figure out, hey, if we have 1 chicken, 2 chickens, 3 loose chickens, where do we house them? What do we do with them? Do we just bring them straight to euthanasia? Like, what? I mean, here
So it
we
sounds
are.
like, Eric, you should be on the ad
Animals.
hoc committee. It sounds like you might be someone that should be on it, because there's a lot of points that you just because mostly it's your role, and if there's anything that comes out of it, your voice should be heard mostly, because you'd be the one carrying out some of the responsibilities. So in creating this ad hoc committee, I'll be sure to make sure that you're included, as well as some of the other department heads that are present. The only thing for me is, like you guys said, you guys are super busy, and I would not want to put you onto something that you wouldn't feel like it's too much, like it's an adding on significantly. So before we create the ad hoc committee, and I'll speak to, again, Councilor Givner and Councilor Devine, we'll talk about putting you guys on it and asking you guys what it is for a time commitment and stuff like that. But on the motion, which was that the order is complied with, and then we move it to the full council meeting, which would be okay too, but I'm just doing my thing. But Councilor Bacon, roll call vote.
Yes.
Councilor Bartley.
Yes.
Councilor Meg McGrath-Smith.
No.
Councilor Jenny Rivera.
No.
Councilor Israel Rivera. No. With that, the motion doesn't pass. I'll entertain a motion for the item to be tabled.
Second?
Well, that should be the first. You make the motion.
Motion for item 21 to be tabled?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Roll call vote. Bacon.
Yes.
Councilor Bartley. Yes. Councilor Rivera. Yes. Councilor Meg McGrath-Smith. Yes. And Councilor Jenny Rivera. Yes.
Yes.
I think we have 3 or 4 left. You want to take those up as a package? You want to table the one you filed? It's okay.
It is 9.
All right, no worries. Let me see. We got 19. Give me a second. 19, 20. And thank you guys, and thank you all for attending. 21 and 23.
Thank you.
Jenny, 23. Huh? No, yes. I was. Thank you all for coming. Specifically, Board of Health, Building Department, and Eric. Thank you again from the Animal Control too as well. In case you guys didn't hear me when I said thank you all. So then, how about we do this? We just do a motion to adjourn for now, and then we take up the rest of the items for the next meeting, if that's
And to
okay.
adjourn?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Roll call vote. Counselor Bacon,
Yes.
Counselor McGrath Smith,
Yes.
Counselor Jenny Rivera,
Yes.
and Counselor Israel Rivera. Yes. Thank you guys all. Have a good night. See you guys in 2 weeks.
Thank you. Good night.
Check you out, Mr. Bissonette.
Good night.